Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the USS Meridian. His hands gripped the metal rail as he stared at the screen in front of him. The screen showed empty space, but his sensors told a different story. Something was out there. Something big. "Captain, we still have that unknown ship on our sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Peterson. She sat at the communications desk, her fingers moving over the controls. "It has been there for 3 months now." "No response to any of our calls," Jake nodded. He had been tracking this mystery ship for weeks. Every report said the same thing. A large black ship moving through space. No signals. No answers, just silence. The unknown ship was huge. 2 kilometers long, maybe more. Its hull was black as deep space. Strange blue lights moved across its surface in patterns that made no sense. The ship moved without any visible engines, gliding through the void like a ghost. "Any word from command?" Jake asked. Commander Lisa Hayes walked up to him with a datapad in her hands. "High Command is worried, sir. 3 alien patrol ships have gone missing in this area. The Galactic Council thinks this ghost ship destroyed them." Jake took the datapad and read the reports. The missing ships belonged to different alien races. A Xanthari cruiser, 2 Vex fighters. All vanished without sending any distress calls. All last seen near the ghost ship. "What do the aliens think?" Jake asked. "They think it is a new human weapon," Lisa said. "Some kind of super warship we built in secret?" "The Xanthari Empire is getting angry. They want answers." Jake looked back at the screen. The ghost ship hung in space like a dark shadow. He had served in the Space Navy for 20 years. He had seen many alien ships, but this one was different. Its design matched nothing in their databases. "Sir," called Ensign Ryan Brooks from the sensor station, "the ghost ship is moving." Jake turned to watch the tactical display. For the first time in months, the mystery ship was changing course. But it was not moving toward them or away from them. Instead, it seemed to be positioning itself between the Meridian and something else. "What is it moving toward?" Jake asked. Ryan's hands flew over his controls. "I am picking up new contacts, sir. Multiple ships approaching from the edge of the system. The computer says they are Xanthari heavy cruisers." Jake felt his stomach drop. Xanthari cruisers were bad news. They were heavily armed and their crews were trained warriors. If they were here, it meant trouble. "How many ships?" Lisa asked. 5 cruisers, sir, all showing active weapon systems. They are not responding to our identification signals. Jake walked to his command chair and sat down. This was not a planned meeting. The Xanthari ships were here for a fight. And somehow, the ghost ship knew they were coming. "Red alert," Jake ordered. "All hands to battle stations. Raise shields and charge weapons." Alarms began ringing throughout the ship. Crew members ran to their positions. The lights on the bridge changed to red. Everyone knew what red alert meant. "Captain," Amy said from her station, "the Xanthari are sending a message." "Put it on screen." The main display changed to show a Xanthari commander. His face looked like a mix between a lizard and an insect. His eyes were black and cold. When he spoke, his voice was harsh and angry. "Human ship," the alien said. "You will surrender now or be destroyed. Your ghost ship has attacked Xanthari vessels. The Empire demands justice." Jake stood up. "This is Captain Morrison of the USS Meridian. We have not attacked any of your ships. The unknown vessel is not under our control." The Xanthari commander's mandibles clicked together. "Lies! Your weapon ship destroyed our patrols. You will pay for this crime." The transmission ended. Jake looked at his crew. Everyone was watching him, waiting for orders. "Sir," Ryan called out, "the Xanthari ships are moving into attack formation. Time to weapons range, 3 minutes." Jake studied the tactical display. 5 Xanthari cruisers against his 1 ship. The odds were not good, but something strange was happening. The ghost ship was still positioning itself between the 2 forces. "What is that thing doing?" Lisa asked. Before Jake could answer, Amy spoke up. "Captain, I am detecting transmissions from the unknown ship. Not words, but some kind of mathematical sequence. The patterns are complex. Jake watched as the ghost ship moved with smooth grace. It was not acting like a warship preparing for battle. Its movements were too calm, too peaceful, like it was trying to prevent a fight rather than start one. 2 minutes to weapons range, Ryan announced the Zenthari. Cruisers were spread out in perfect attack formation. Their weapons were charged and ready. Jake had seen this formation before during the border wars. It was designed to destroy enemy ships quickly and completely, but the ghost ship was not running. Instead, it began broadcasting on multiple frequencies. The transmissions were not random. They followed mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence, purpose. "Captain," Amy said, her voice filled with wonder. "I think it is trying to communicate. The sequences match universal mathematical constants, pi golden ratio, prime numbers." Jake stared at the ghost ship. For 3 months, everyone had assumed it was a weapon, a tool of war. But what if they were wrong? What if it was something else entirely? 1 minute to weapons range, Ryan said. The Zenthari ships were almost in position. Their weapons were fully charged and aimed at both human ships. Jake had to make a decision fast. He looked at the ghost ship one more time. It was still broadcasting its mathematical messages, still trying to communicate, still positioning itself as if to protect rather than attack. "All power to shields," Jake ordered. "Prepare for incoming fire." The bridge crew moved quickly, too. Follow his orders, shield generators hummed to life. Weapon systems came online. The USS Meridian was ready for battle, but Jake kept watching the ghost ship. Something told him that this mysterious vessel held the key to everything. Whether it was friend or enemy remained to be seen. The Zenthari attack was about to begin. The Zenthari cruisers came out of hyperspace like metal sharks hunting for blood. Their red hulls gleamed under the distant star's light. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human ships through his tactical display. For weeks, his scouts had tracked what they believed was a powerful new human warship. Intelligence reports linked the ghost ship to missing Zenthari vessels. 3 good ships with brave crews all vanished near this black terror. The Empire wanted revenge. "Human vessel," Vextar spoke into his communicator. "You will surrender. Now or face destruction. Your ghost ship has killed Zenthari warriors. This crime must be answered." Captain Morrison's voice crackled back through space. "We have not attacked your ships. The unknown vessel is not ours." Vextar's mandibles clicked in anger. Humans always lied when caught. His sensors showed 2 human ships. One was clearly a military vessel. The other was the black ghost that had haunted Zenthari space for months. "Lies will not save you," Vextar replied. "Prepare to die." He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, target both human vessels, fire when ready." But as the Zenthari fleet moved into position, something unexpected happened. The ghost ship began to move between the 2 forces. Its black hull reflected no light, making it look like a hole cut out of space itself on the USS Meridian. Captain Morrison watched the tactical display with growing confusion. The ghost ship was not acting like a warship. Instead of preparing weapons or running away, it seemed to be trying to prevent the coming battle. "Sir," Lieutenant Peterson said from her station, "the unknown ship is broadcasting again." "The signals are getting stronger." "What kind of signals?" Morrison asked. "Mathematical sequences, but more complex now. Like it is trying harder to communicate." Morrison studied the display. The ghost ship was definitely positioning itself as a shield between the human and Zenthari forces. But why would a weapon try to prevent a fight? The first Zenthari cruiser opened fire. Bright energy beams cut through space. But they were aimed at the ghost ship, not the Meridian. The alien weapons struck the black hull with tremendous force. But instead of exploding or taking damage, the ghost ship simply absorbed the energy. The strange blue patterns on its hull began to pulse brighter. "Captain," Commander Hayes said, staring at her instruments, "those energy readings are impossible. The ghost ship is not taking damage. It is absorbing the weapon fire." More Zenthari ships opened fire. Beam after beam struck the mysterious vessel. Each hit made the hull patterns glow brighter. The ghost ship began to move more gracefully, dancing between the energy blasts like it was performing some kind of ritual. Then something beautiful happened. The ghost ship began to sing. It was not sound that human ears could hear. Instead, it was a vibration that traveled through subspace itself. Every ship in the area detected it. On the Meridian's bridge, the crew watched their instruments with wonder. "What is that?" Morrison asked. "Harmonic frequencies," Peterson replied, her voice filled with awe. "It is like music, but transmitted through space itself." The song was hauntingly beautiful. Even through their instruments, the crew could feel its emotional power. It spoke of loneliness, of long journeys through empty space, of a desperate desire to communicate with others. But the Xanthari saw it differently. To their warrior minds, the ghost ship's response looked like a battle challenge. The glowing hull and graceful movements seemed like a war dance. "Admiral," Vextar ordered his entire fleet to open fire. 5 Xanthari cruisers unleashed their full weapon power. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a space station. Energy. Beams filled the void between the ships like deadly lightning, but the ghost ship absorbed it all. With each hit, its hull glowed brighter. The blue pattern spread across its surface like living light. Instead of being destroyed, the mysterious vessel seemed to be feeding on the weapon fire. "By the ancestors," whispered Commander Hayes, "look at the energy patterns. This ship is not designed for war. Those hull markings are not armor or weapons." Morrison leaned forward. "What are they?" "Communication arrays. Massive ones. This entire ship is built for one purpose: to talk to other species." The realization hit Morrison like a physical blow. For 3 months, everyone had assumed the ghost ship was a weapon. Military minds thinking in military terms. But what if they were completely wrong? "It has been trying to communicate with us this entire time," he said softly. The ghost ship's song changed. New harmonics joined the melody. Data streams began flooding every ship's communication systems. Not weapon attacks, but information transfers. Mathematical formulas, star charts, scientific discoveries. "Captain," Peterson said excitedly, "it is sharing knowledge. Technical data, cultural information, artistic expressions. This ship is like a traveling library." On his display, Morrison could see some of the transmitted data. Pictures of strange alien cities floating among the stars. Technical blueprints for technologies beyond human understanding. Art forms that seem to capture the beauty of entire galaxies. "My God," Ensign Brooks said from the sensor station. "This is not a warship at all. It is an explorer, a teacher. It has been trying to share all this knowledge with anyone who would listen, but the Xanthari were not listening. Their cultural programming saw only threats and challenges." The ghost ship's peaceful intentions were lost in translation. They continued their attack with growing fury. The sustained weapon fire was beginning to take its toll. The ghost ship's graceful movements became more labored. Its song took on notes of pain and sadness. The beautiful light patterns on its hull began to flicker. Morrison made a decision that would change galactic history. "All power to forward shields," he ordered. "Move us between the Xanthari fleet and the ghost ship." "Sir?" Commander Hayes asked. In surprise, "You heard me. That ship is not our enemy. It is trying to give us gifts, and we are letting them destroy it out of ignorance." The USS Meridian moved forward, placing itself directly in the path of the Xanthari weapon fire. The ship's shields flared as energy beams found their new target. "Hull integrity dropping," Chief Engineer Danny Walsh reported. "We cannot take this punishment for long," but Morrison held firm. Behind them, the ghost ship continued its transmissions. Now that it was protected, its song became stronger. More data flowed from its hull. Pictures of its creators began appearing on the meridians. Screens. The beings in the images were tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to glow from within. They moved through crystal cities that floated in space. Their entire civilization appeared to be built around learning and sharing knowledge with others. "The ship's name translates as Eternal Dawn," Peterson reported. Its people called themselves the Lumina. They were explorers and teachers who traveled between the stars. Admiral Vexstar watched the human ship take position between his fleet and their target. The human captain was protecting the ghost ship with his own vessel. This made no sense to the Xanthari commander. Why would humans sacrifice themselves for an enemy weapon? Sir, his science officer reported, I am detecting massive data transmissions from the ghost ship. It appears to be sharing technical information with the human vessel. Vexstar studied his displays. The ghost ship was not fighting back. It was not launching weapons or trying to escape. Instead, it was broadcasting what looked like cultural and scientific data. For the first time since the battle began, doubt crept into the Xanthari admiral's mind. Warriors did not share knowledge with their enemies. They destroyed them. What? If this ghost ship was not a warrior at all? 3 weeks after the encounter with the Eternal Dawn, Captain Morrison found himself in a situation he never could have imagined. He sat across a table from Admiral Vexstar in the conference room of Starbase 7. The same Xanthari commander who had tried to destroy his ship was now working alongside him to understand what had happened to them all. The shared experience had changed both leaders completely. The artificial barriers between their species seemed foolish now. They could still feel echoes of each other's emotions, a faint connection that made lies and deception almost impossible. The memories grow weaker each day, Vexstar said in careful English. He was still learning the human language, but the emotional connection made communication much easier. But the understanding remains. I cannot forget what it felt like to experience fear through your eyes. Morrison nodded. Or what it felt like to experience honor through yours. Your people are not the monsters we thought they were. Dr. Helen Carter entered the conference room carrying several data pads and looking exhausted. She had been working day and night to catalog the vast database left behind by the Eternal Dawn. The task seemed impossible for one person, but she was determined to understand what the Lumina had given them. Captain Admiral, she said, setting down her materials, I have some important findings to share. We have barely looked at 1% of the data the Eternal Dawn left us, but what we have found is incredible. She activated a holographic display showing star charts marked with different colored zones. Red areas covered large sections of several galaxies. The Lumina were not just explorers and teachers, Carter explained. They were also refugees. Something drove them from their home galaxy approximately 3,000 years ago. They called it the Void Seekers. Morrison leaned forward. What are Void Seekers? According to the Lumina records, they are entities that consume entire star systems. Not just the planets or the stars themselves, but everything. Matter, energy, even space itself. Where they pass, nothing remains but empty void. Admiral Vexstar's mandibles clicked together in concern. This explains strange reports from our outer colonies. Several star systems have gone dark in recent months. We assumed it was equipment failure. It was not equipment failure, Carter said grimly. The Void Seekers have found a path to our galaxy. The Eternal Dawn was not just trying to preserve knowledge. It was trying to prepare us for what is coming. She changed the display to show technical diagrams and scientific formulas. The Lumina fought the Void Seekers for thousands of years. Before their civilization fell, they learned that conventional weapons are useless against these entities. But they discovered something else. Morrison studied the complex diagrams. What did they discover? That the Void Seekers cannot consume certain things. Love, hope, the bonds between different forms of life. These concepts are completely alien to them. More than that, these emotions can actually weaken the Void Seekers. Carter pulled up more data showing the final battle between the Lumina and their destroyers. The Lumina tried to fight as individual ships and planets. They failed because they were facing the enemy alone. But their last transmission suggests that unity between different species might be the key to victory. Admiral Vexstar stood and began pacing around the room. In his warrior culture, pacing was a sign of deep thought, not agitation. You were saying that what happened to us was not an accident. The Eternal Dawn deliberately created this connection between our peoples. More than that, Carter replied. I believe it was testing us, seeing if we were capable of the kind of cooperation that might survive against the Void Seekers. Morrison felt a chill as he realized the implications. How long do we have? Based on the outer system reports and the Lumina's calculations, perhaps 6 months before the first scouts arrive, maybe less. The room fell silent as both leaders absorbed this information. 6 months to prepare for enemies that had destroyed an advanced civilization spanning multiple galaxies, but they were not starting from nothing. Over the past 3 weeks, the effect of the Eternal Dawn's final gift had been spreading. Other species who had been touched by the ship's dying light were reporting similar experiences. The artificial barriers between civilizations were beginning to break down. Lieutenant Peterson entered the conference room with a communication device. She had been promoted to head of interspecies communications, a job that had never existed. "Before, Captain Admiral," she said excitedly, "I have been receiving responses from over 30 different species." The Eternal Dawn's final transmission reached much farther than we initially thought. Representatives from the Vex Collective, the Ilion Federation, and dozens of smaller worlds want to meet, Morrison smiled. What are they saying? The same thing we experienced. Increased empathy, better understanding of other species, and growing awareness of some external threat. They want to form some kind of alliance. Admiral Vexstar stopped pacing. An alliance between natural enemies? My people have been at war with half these species for generations. That was before, Peterson replied. Before we understood what we were really fighting about. The Eternal Dawn showed us that our conflicts were based on fear and misunderstanding. Now that we can actually feel what others experience, those old hatreds seem pointless. Dr. Carter activated another display showing the known locations of Void Seeker activity. We have reports of 3 more star systems going dark in the past week. Whatever is coming, it is accelerating. Morrison stood and walked to the viewport overlooking the starbase's docking bays. Ships from a dozen different species were arriving. Daily, former enemies working together to understand their shared experience. The Lumina spent 3,000 years carrying this message across space, he said quietly. Ship after ship was destroyed because other species could not accept their gift. But we did. We passed their test. Admiral Vexstar joined him at the viewport. My warriors have always believed that strength comes from conquest. That the strongest fighter wins all battles. But the Eternal Dawn showed us a different kind of strength. The strength of unity, Morrison agreed. The power that comes when different beings choose to work together instead of fighting each other. Peterson looked up from her communications console. Captain, I am receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. They want a full report on what happened here. Morrison nodded. Tell them we will be sending more than a report. We are going to send a proposal for the largest alliance in galactic history. Sir? Peterson asked. The Xanthari Empire, the Human Federation, the Vex Collective, the Ilion Federation, and every other species willing to join. The Eternal Dawn gave us the ability to understand each other. Now we need to use that gift to prepare for the real enemy. Over the following days, representatives from across the galaxy arrived at Starbase 7. Species that had been enemies for centuries sat down together at the same table. The shared experience of the Eternal Dawn's gift made communication possible in ways that had never existed before. Dr. Carter worked with scientists from every species to analyze the Lumina database. Engineers began designing new types of weapons based on Lumina technology. But most importantly, philosophers and leaders began planning how to unite dozens of different cultures into a single effective alliance. The Eternal Dawn is gone, Morrison said during one of the planning sessions. But its mission continues. We are becoming what the Lumina hoped we could be. Admiral Vexstar nodded agreement. Not just individual species fighting for survival, but a united galaxy preparing to face the darkness together. Outside the starbase, long-range sensors were detecting more anomalies at the edge of known space. The Void Seekers were coming. and the real test of their new alliance was approaching fast. The USS Meridian shook under the fierce Xanthari attack. Captain Morrison gripped his chair as another energy beam struck their shields. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. The smell of burning circuits filled the bridge. Hull integrity down to 40%, Chief Engineer Walsh called out over the noise. Captain, our shields are failing. We cannot protect the ghost ship much longer. Morrison watched the tactical display. Behind them, the ship they now knew as the Eternal Dawn continued its peaceful transmissions. Even while under attack, it kept trying to share knowledge and understanding with anyone who would listen. The Lumina ship is changing again, Commander. Hayes reported, energy readings are off the charts. Something big is about to happen. Through the viewports, they could see the ancient vessel transforming before their eyes. The sustained weapon fire had cracked its black hull in several places. But instead of revealing twisted metal and broken machinery, brilliant light poured out from the wounds. The light was not harsh or blinding. It was warm and gentle, like sunlight through crystal. It seemed to pulse with its own life, reaching out toward both human and Xanthari ships. The song is changing too, Lieutenant Peterson said, her voice filled with wonder. It is becoming something deeper, more complex, like it is preparing for something important. On his command screen, Morrison could see data still flowing from the Eternal Dawn, but the nature of the information was changing. Instead of technical blueprints or cultural records, the ship was now transmitting something more personal, memories, experiences, the emotional history of an entire civilization. He saw images of the Lumina at the height of their power. Cities of crystal and light floating between the stars. Beings of incredible grace and wisdom who had spent millions of years gathering knowledge from across the galaxy. They were teachers, librarians, keepers of the greatest treasures that thinking beings could create, but he also saw their tragedy. A great disaster that had swept across their home galaxy. Something dark and hungry that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty void behind. The Lumina had fought bravely, but they were scholars, not warriors. Their civilization fell to the advancing darkness. The Eternal Dawn was one of the last ships to escape. It carried with it the accumulated knowledge of 1,000 dead worlds. Its mission was simple but vital: find other young civilizations and share what the Lumina had learned. Help them grow wise enough to face the darkness when it came. Captain, Hayes said urgently, the Xanthari ships are regrouping for another attack. But the Eternal Dawn is doing something. Energy readings are reaching critical levels. Admiral Vexstar watched from his flagship as the ghost ship began to glow like a small star. His weapons? Officers reported that their sustained attack had finally breached the enemy's hull. Victory was within reach, but his science officer was reporting strange readings. Sir, the ghost ship is not dying, it is transforming. These energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases. Vexstar studied his displays with growing unease. The ghost ship's wounds were leaking light instead of atmosphere. Its hull was beginning to fracture, but each crack revealed more of that strange, living radiance. All ships, maximum firepower, he ordered. Destroy that vessel before it can. Complete whatever it is trying to do. The Xanthari fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy cannons, plasma torpedoes, quantum disruptors. Enough firepower to level a small moon struck the Eternal Dawn in a concentrated barrage. The ancient ship absorbed it all. Each weapon strike made it glow brighter. The cracks in its hull spread wider, but instead of causing destruction, they released more of that impossible light. On the bridge of the Meridian, Morrison realized what was happening. It is not trying to attack us, he said quietly. It is preparing to give us its final gift. The Eternal Dawn's hull began to come apart, but not in an explosion of destruction. Instead, it dissolved into streams of pure light that raced outward in all directions. The light reached every ship in the area, human and Xanthari alike. When the light touched the Meridian, Morrison felt something extraordinary happen. Suddenly, he could sense the emotions of everyone around him. Not just his own crew, but the Xanthari warriors who had been trying to kill them moments before. He felt Admiral Vextar's confusion and growing shame as the Xanthari commander realized what they had done. He experienced the fear and courage of his own crew members. Most powerfully, he felt the ancient sadness and desperate hope of the dying Lumina ship. Through the shared connection, Morrison experienced the complete history of the Eternal Dawn. He saw how it had wandered the galaxy for 3,000 years, searching for civilizations ready to receive its gifts. Most species had reacted with fear and violence, just as the Xanthari had done. Ship after ship had been destroyed before it could complete its mission, but the Eternal Dawn had never given up. It had continued its lonely journey, hoping to find beings wise enough to accept knowledge instead of fearing it. Now, in its final moments, it was succeeding. The light carried more than just information. It carried understanding, empathy, the ability to truly comprehend what other beings felt and experienced. For the first time in galactic history, different species could genuinely understand each other. On the Xanthari flagship, Admiral Vextar staggered as the realization hit him. Through the shared connection, he felt the terror of the human crew as his ships had attacked them. He experienced their desperate courage as they tried to protect something they barely understood. Most painful of all, he felt the ancient grief of the luminous civilization. Beings who had spent their entire existence trying to help others only to be destroyed by the very species they sought to aid. "Stop firing," he ordered his fleet. "All ships cease attack immediately." His weapons officers looked at him in confusion. "Sir, the human ship is defenseless. We can finish them easily." "I said stop firing," Vextar roared. "Do not fire another shot." Across the battle zone, the same scene was playing out on every ship. Human and Xanthari crew members were experiencing each other's emotions directly. The barriers of language, culture, and species were dissolving under the impact of genuine understanding. Lieutenant Peterson was crying as she received the last transmissions from the Eternal Dawn. The dying ship was downloading its entire database into the Meridian's computers. Every piece of knowledge the Lumina had gathered over millions of years. Every story, every song, every scientific discovery they had preserved. But more than that, it was sharing the one thing that mattered most, the understanding that all thinking beings were connected. That the differences between species were less important than the similarities. That cooperation was stronger than conflict. "Captain," Commander Hayes said softly, "it is gone. The Eternal Dawn has given us everything it had." Morrison looked at the empty space where the ancient ship had been. Only a fading glow remained, like the memory of a beautiful dream, but the ship's gift lived on. Every person who had been touched by its final light was changed. They could still feel the connection to others, faint but real. The capacity for true understanding had been awakened in them. "Sir," Peterson reported, "Admiral Vextar is requesting permission to come aboard." "He wants to talk," Morrison nodded. For the first time since the battle began, he was not afraid. The Eternal Dawn had given them something more valuable than any weapon, the ability to see their enemies as fellow beings struggling to survive in a dangerous universe. The ghost ship was gone, but its mission was finally complete. The dawn it had carried across the galaxy was beginning to break. 6 months after the Eternal Dawn's sacrifice, the first Void Seeker scout entered the Kepler sector. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Meridian, but his ship was no longer alone. Around him flew vessels from 12 different species, all working together as one united fleet. The Meridian itself had been changed by the Lumina technology. Its hull now bore the same geometric patterns that had once adorned the Eternal Dawn, but these were not just decorations. They were powerful communication arrays that allowed instant coordination between all allied ships. "Contact confirmed," reported Commander Hayes from her station. "Range 2 million kilometers and closing." Morrison looked at the main screen and felt his blood run cold. The Void Seeker scout was nothing like the beautiful Eternal Dawn, where the Lumina ship had been graceful and bright. This entity was its complete opposite. It appeared as a writhing mass of absolute darkness that seemed to devour light itself. "All stations report ready," announced Lieutenant Peterson, now serving as Fleet Communications Coordinator. Her voice remained steady despite the magnitude. of what they faced. Admiral Vextar's voice came through the communication system from his flagship, now renamed the Unity in honor of their alliance. Human friends, my warriors stand ready, but today we fight not as conquerors but as protectors of all life. The Void Seeker Scout moved through space in a way that hurt to watch. Reality seemed to bend around it. Nearby asteroids did not just get destroyed, they simply stopped existing, as if they had never been there at all. "Captain," Dr. Carter called from the science station. "Sensors confirm what the Lumina database warned us about. That thing is not just destroying matter. It is unmaking it at the most basic level. Where it passes, the laws of physics break down." But the Alliance was ready. 6 months of cooperation using Lumina knowledge had produced weapons and defenses unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of crude energy beams and explosive missiles, their ships now carried Harmony cannons and reality anchors. "All ships," Morrison commanded, "begin the song." What happened next would be remembered forever in galactic history. 47 ships from 12 different species began broadcasting in perfect unison. Their combined transmission created a harmonic frequency that traveled through subspace itself. It was the same song the Eternal Dawn had sung in its final moments, but now it was amplified by the voices of an entire alliance. The song carried the hopes and dreams of billions of beings who had chosen cooperation over conflict. The effect on the Void Seeker Scout was immediate and dramatic. Its advance stopped as the harmony washed over it. The darkness that surrounded it began to flicker like a candle in the wind. For the first time, they could see what it really was underneath the corruption. "By all the ancestors," whispered Admiral Vextar over the communication link, "it was like us once. A living being, but changed into something horrible." The realization changed everything they thought they knew about their enemy. The Void Seekers were not invaders from outside reality. They were victims, transformed by something even worse into tools of destruction. Lieutenant Brooks, now a specialist in xenopsychology, coordinated the fleet's response. "All ships, focus Harmony transmissions on frequency pattern 77 Alpha. We are going to try to restore its original personality." The battle became something beautiful and terrible at the same time. Light fought against darkness, but not through violence. Instead, they were trying to heal their enemy rather than destroy it. The Alliance ships moved in perfect coordination, their Harmony cannons working together to penetrate the corruption that surrounded the Void Seeker Scout. Slowly, painfully, they began to burn away the hunger that had consumed its original identity. The Scout writhed and pulsed as the Harmony reached its core. Memories of what it had once been started to surface. Through their shared connection, the Alliance fleet could feel its pain and confusion. And then, in a moment that marked the true birth of galactic civilization, the Void Seeker Scout stopped consuming and started singing back. Its voice was broken and filled with thousands of years of pain, but it was definitely singing. Through the harmony, they felt memories of what it had once been, an explorer much like the Lumina, transformed by contact with something from beyond the edge of reality itself. "The Devourers," the restored being whispered through their shared connection. "They come from the spaces between galaxies, from the void between realities. My people found them first in the darkness beyond all stars. They turned us into weapons, tools to prepare galaxies for consumption, but you have given me back my true self." Captain Morrison felt tears running down his face as he experienced the entity's memories. He saw entire civilizations consumed, not by evil, but by beings twisted beyond recognition by contact with something that should not exist in their universe. "How many more like you are coming?" he asked through the mental link. "Thousands," came the painful reply. "But now there is hope. Your song, your unity, it is the one thing the Devourers cannot consume or understand. Love, cooperation, the bonds between different forms of life, these things are poison to the void. You have turned compassion itself into a weapon." Over. The following weeks, more Void Seeker Scouts arrived at the edge of the galaxy, but each one was met by the growing Alliance fleet and healed through the power of their unified song. With every restoration, Their knowledge grew stronger and their unity deepened. The restored beings brought terrible warnings about the true devourers still approaching from beyond the galaxy's edge. These were entities from outside normal reality, creatures that existed in the spaces between universes where nothing should be able to live. They sought to unmake all existence, to return everything to the perfect emptiness of the void, but the restored scouts also brought hope. They confirmed what the Lumina had discovered, that unity between different species created something the devourers could not understand or destroy. The bonds of friendship and cooperation generated a kind of energy that was completely alien to beings from the void. "We have more time than we thought," Dr. Carter reported during one of the Alliance Council meetings. "The restored scouts estimate at least 2 years before the main devourer force arrives. But we need to use that time wisely." Admiral Vextar stood before the assembled representatives from dozens of worlds. "My people have spent generations believing that strength came from conquest, that warriors won through superior force. The eternal dawn taught us that true strength comes from standing together." Morrison nodded agreement. "The ghost ship was never a warrior, as we first thought. It was something far more powerful, a teacher, showing us that the greatest weapon against darkness is the light that comes from beings choosing to help each other." The Alliance continued to grow. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working side by side. The shared experience of healing the Void Seeker Scouts had created bonds that went deeper than politics or territory. They were united by something more fundamental, the understanding that all thinking beings shared the same hopes and fears. New technologies emerged from the combination of Lumina knowledge and the cooperation of many species. Harmony engines that could project the Alliance's song across entire star systems. Reality anchors that could stabilize space itself against the Devourer's unmaking effect. Most importantly, communication networks that allowed instant coordination between thousands of ships. The restored scouts are teaching us their original language, Lieutenant Peterson reported. It is based on mathematical harmonies that describe the fundamental structure of reality. By learning to speak it, we become better at working together. As the months passed, the Alliance fleet grew from dozens of ships to hundreds, then thousands. Each vessel carried not just weapons and defenses, but also the combined knowledge and culture of its species. They were not just preparing for war. They were creating a new kind of civilization, based on cooperation and understanding. The edge of the galaxy grew darker as the Devourers approached. Long-range sensors detected massive distortions in space itself. Entire star systems were being consumed, leaving nothing but absolute void behind. But for every system that fell, the Alliance grew stronger. "They thought the ghost ship was a warrior," Morrison said quietly as he stood on the observation deck of the Meridian. Around him, ships from across the galaxy worked together in perfect harmony. But it was something much more important. It was hope itself, traveling through the darkness to find us. Commander Hayes joined him at the viewport. "Do you think we are ready for what is coming?" Morrison smiled as he watched a group of young officers from different species working together on a new project. Human, Xanthari, Vex, and Elion engineers, solving problems that none of them could handle alone. "The Eternal Dawn completed its mission," he said. "It found species capable of growth, of change, of putting aside old hatreds to face a common threat. Whether we are ready or not, we will face the darkness together." Far in the distance, the first light of a new day was breaking across the galaxy. It was not the light of any star, but something far more precious, the dawn of understanding between beings who had once been strangers and enemies. The ghost ship was gone, but its gift lived on in every act of cooperation, every moment of understanding, every choice to build bridges instead of walls. The Devourers